Hello, I'm John from the Christian Coaching Institute, and I'm really excited to share with you what we're doing for our End of Winter program for the local church. And I'd love to tell you what it is, but first I'd just like to take a few minutes to tell you about the why. Not so long back I received an email from a senior colleague who's involved with a number of churches, and he sent me this email. He said, John, he said, we need some training here. And this is what he wrote. Let me read it to you. We have some big issues in our churches here: financial sustainability, rural challenges, old style churches that need to change, lack of courage because of history and local culture, a commitment to mediocrity. All of these things are going to need very focused leaders to overcome. Wow, you hear that and you think, what is going on? The research we conducted in 2015 with our little program, the 5 Domains of Leadership, just confirmed very clearly how supportive and productive coaching is for the local pastor. But as we continued with both training and coaching, and this is an ongoing research project for us, something else is beginning to emerge, and it gives rise to this End of Winter program. This is what we're finding. Pastors, preachers, priests, local church leaders are tremendously well served with coaching in 3 ways. Firstly, coaching just saves the local leader from burnout. It supports them, it sustains them in ministry, it gives them focus. Secondly, coaching provides for them leadership development, and it gets them into the space where they're growing as leaders, and they in turn have the capacity to develop their own leadership team, and that's a great thing. And thirdly, coaching is missional by its very nature. What are you here for? What are you doing? How's that going for you? How are you reaching people for Christ? So it does those 3 things, and it's a great thing. And one of the things we're finding nonetheless is that there's a little piece before that, before we begin training and coaching leaders, that's really critically important. In fact, the emerging model of ministry that's happening across Australia and indeed across the world in lots of ways it's a fairly simple but profound model, and it's about 3 things. One, it's about learning curriculum. So this is what we're on about as church. This is what we do. This is what we do for Jesus and for the kingdom. Secondly, it's about learning community. This is how we do it together. So if you're not doing it together as local church, chances are you're not doing it. And that's a critical issue. The third thing we do is the coaching piece around that. So we've got a learning community, we've got a learning curriculum, and we've got a coaching piece that actually sustains that forward movement for the kingdom. That's what coaching is providing, and that's the movement forward. The piece that we're finding before that is the reason for this program. It's the fact that in the local church, not everybody is on the same page. There's reasons for that, and we understand that as we work with leaders and teams. Here's some of the reasons that we're finding. Point A would be, in any given local church, there are lots of people who have a much greater level of education than the local pastor. The pastor might have his BTH or his BMin, he might even have a master's degree, and in lots of congregations there are people with PhDs who are much more well-read than your local pastor. It used to be that the local pastor and the lawyer and the doctor were the clever people in the congregation. No longer the case. So there's a higher level of expectation in the local church. Then 2, the local leadership in the church, pastors come and go, but the people who've been there for 10, 20 and 30 years, they have a much better reading of the culture and the history of the church than the pastor does. And they've seen pastors come and go, but they know how the church works. So there's some of the things. The second part of the why is the changing context of the church. You don't have to be a church leader to know that the church is changing. There's the move from religion to spiritualities, there's the move from dogma to experience, there's the move from being a spectator, I go to church, I park my butt in a pew and I listen to, no, if I'm not involved, I'm not really interested. There's all of that happening in the local church, and you've probably experienced it, and you've probably heard people say it's boring, not interested, switched off, disconnected. That kind of thing happens, and there's a whole range of reasons for that. Add to that the fact that the church it's copped a bit of a beating of late with the Royal Commission and those things. We hear of the high rate of clergy attrition, young people leaving the church in droves across all denominations. It doesn't make much difference, really. And you think, hey, the church is in crisis. Is it really? Or is the church going through a change where God is inviting us into a new space to rediscover what is it that we're called to do? What is it that we need to do differently? Yes, the book doesn't change, but the way we do the book, the way we follow Jesus changes. That's the reason why we're running this program. Here's the third reason why. You are worth investing in. You as a leader and your leadership team. Your local church is worth investing in. Something we often forget, isn't it? Corporations run training all the time. You expect your children, you send them to schools and universities. They're worth investing in. Who's investing in you in the local church? The greatest kingdom venture on the face of the planet. Who's investing in you on a regular basis? The most exciting thing possible, following the living Christ, the Lord of the universe, in history. And people call him boring? Really? That's the why. That's what we're on about. So that's one of the things why we've invested in the winter program. So what is it about? It's about laying a common foundation together in Christ. That's a key missing piece. Let's rediscover, back to ground zero. It's learning about training together. We want to do this together as a community. And that's the challenging piece, and we want to invest in each other for the kingdom. We want to grow as people. This is what we've learnt about training and development, and I'm going to use a little bit of corporate speak, but I'll translate it. We've learnt that when learning and development is linked to achieving the strategic purposes of the church, effectiveness increases. Yeah, that's in corporate speak. Let me change it. Learning and development. When you do discipleship, effectiveness increases. Developing the capability and the motivation of your people should be directly linked to what you want the church to achieve. It's pretty critical, isn't it? What are we here for? How are we training our people to do that? Thirdly, if you want to nail the strategic purpose, if you want to get this and get it right, then we need to develop the capability of our people to reflect that training and development. Let them do it. Let's see how they go. Let's keep investing in them. So here's what we found, and you can have a look at it in these following slides. Where there is no training, there is no upskilling, and there is no impact in the local community. When there is some training, there's a little bit of ownership by the local Christian. There's a minimal impact in the community, and so on as we move up the ladder. Where there's some strategic training, you begin to develop an awareness of purpose. Lots of churches have got a mission statement or a vision statement. If you ask the members of the congregation, what are you on about? After the 6-month flourish of flogging that, they totally forget about it. And so on. As we continue that focused strategic training in the church, people get interested in the purpose of the church, and so on as we go up the ladder. So that's a bit of the why. Who is the program for? Well, the program's designed specifically for 12 to 20 of the key leaders of the church. That might be your board or your vestry or your elders. It'll be your parish council. It'll be your key lay leaders. It'll be your ministry leaders, your staff and your pastor. So what is your team going to get out of this workshop, this end of winter workshop? They're going to build a suite of tools that are going to help them do ministry. That's the first thing they're going to get. They're going to grow in self-awareness, in emotional competence, knowing what it is that they bring into the room. Thirdly, they're going to identify personal blockages, and putting names to that is just going to help them work more effectively with other people. Fourthly, they're going to develop some really supportive team techniques. We're doing this together, and that's a great thing. Fifthly, they're going to have the opportunity to practice with one another and say, this is how we're going to run this church, this is how we're going to do church together. And lastly, the confidence this will give them will build them as an increasingly effective team member, people who make a contribution. They're not just going to sit there and wait, well, you tell me what to do, but they're going to say, well, let's have a go at this, and they're going to make a contribution. If you'd like to know some more about this workshop, why don't you get in touch with www.christiancoachinginstitute.com.au or give me, John, a call. I'd love to talk with you further about it. Thank you for listening.